Shalom, everybody. James Trim here again, and we are about to begin the um, Book of Enoch, through the Book of Enoch, Lesson 5. And one of the reasons I'm very excited about doing this series of lessons going through the Book of Enoch is that there is very little quality material on the Book of Enoch. Um, and virtually none if your interest is to study the Book of Enoch, uh, presupposing that it is an authentic book. You can sure find plenty of, material to study through the book of Daniel that presupposes Daniel is an authentic writing of Daniel. But much of the material on the book of Enoch is either presupposing that the book of Enoch is a forgery, or presupposing that the book of Enoch is, it's presupposing that it's a late forgery or a late production. The other is material that is somewhat outlandish and not necessarily serious scholarship. So I'm glad that we're doing this study where we're actually going through the Book of Enoch and actually studying it and examining it on the presupposition that it is an authentic book. So we left off at chapter 19 of First Enoch in our last study. And so that's where we'll pick up this week. Chapter 19, verse 1 starts out, "And Uriel said to me, Here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women, and their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind, and shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as gods. Here shall they stand till the day of the great judgment, in which they shall be judged till they are made an end of. And the women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens. And I, Enoch, alone saw the vision, the ends of all things, and no man shall see as I have seen." So here we're told that the book of Enoch contains unique material that no one else had seen. Now, many people lived after Enoch might have seen it, perhaps. But the interesting thing here is in verse 2, the reference to, well, there's a few interesting. Let's start with verse 1, actually. "And Uriel said to me," suddenly Uriel pops into the picture, the angel Uriel. And if we look back to chapter 17, verse 1, starting in verse 17, as Enoch leaves the throne room, it begins with, "And they took and brought me to a place in which those," and so verse 1 starts, "And they took and brought me." Verse 2, "And they brought me to the place of darkness." Verse 4, "And they took me to the living waters." So there's this mysterious they that suddenly are tour guides for Enoch. And then for the first time in verse 1, one of they is named, Uriel. And this is going to become important in chapter 20, because chapter 20, Enoch stops and parenthetically says, "Oh, yeah, I guess, by the way, I should tell you who these guys are." And so there's a parenthetical in chapter 20 that identifies who they were, his tour guides. But let's before we go there, let's deal with chapter 19 verse 2, because that gets pretty in depth. It says, and the women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens. Now, of course, there's some ambiguity in how one might interpret this. One might interpret that some of the fallen angels were women, female, or took female form. But the more natural reading of it is that the women that copulated with the fallen angels. And that seems to be the historical understanding as we will look at this passage and in our handout. And it refers to these women that says that they become sirens. And of course, that immediately creates a difficulty for the biblical reader. Sirens are figures out of Greek mythology, aren't they? Or are they? One of the things we learn with the book of Enoch is that a great deal of Greek mythology is actually corruption of things that are actually true. Okay, so sirens are a class of demonic entities. We learn about different classes of demonic entities in the book of Enoch. We learned about the fallen angels, but there's really only 200 of those at the beginning of the book. And then we found out in our last lesson that there was another class of demonic entities. Excuse me. There's another class of demonic entities which are the children of the disembodied spirits of the children of the fallen angels, the giants, and that their spirits became evil spirits in the earth. And another class of demonic entities that we're now introduced to are sirens. So sirens aren't mentioned in the Bible, or are they? By the way, the Ethiopic text has, and I don't speak Ethiopic or Ge'ez, I think it's called, or Gez, Salamawian, meaning peaceful. But that's widely regarded as a corruption. The Greek text has Cyranos, sirens, into sirens, literally. We'd sure like to see the Aramaic behind this, but unfortunately, the worms ate it, so we don't know what Aramaic word appeared here. However, that doesn't mean that we don't have any information at all to go on. We do. The Greek word for sirens here actually appears in the Septuagint. In the Septuagint, where the Hebrew has the phrase bat yana, which is commonly translated, oddly enough, ostriches. But there's a lot of unusual Hebrew words that we didn't really know the meaning of, didn't appear very often, that were, maybe they were animals, maybe they were demonic entities. We don't know. There's one in Proverbs that the KJV translates as horse leech in Proverbs 30, verse 15, I think it is. And but the Hebrew word may actually refer to a blood-sucking or blood-drinking demon. Okay, so here we have the Bat Yana. There's a debate on what it means, as I said. Some have translated it to refer to a female owl, others to a female ostrich. It always appears, Yana always appears with the prefix Bat, daughter of. It appears in Isaiah 13, verses 21 through 22, But wildcats shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of ferrets, and ostriches shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there, and the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant places. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. That word ostriches is batyana, which the Septuagint translates as sirens. And that's interesting because it is followed up with wild beasts of the islands shall cry. Now, if you know anything about sirens in Greek mythology, they inhabited an island, supposedly, and they had this beautiful song that they would cry out with that would draw sailors in to the island, and they would be oblivious to the rocks that made the coast hazardous, and they would be killed, drawing them into their deaths. Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 39, chapter 27, verse 39 in the Septuagint says, Therefore the wildcats and the jackals shall dwell there, and the ostriches shall dwell therein, and it shall no more be inhabitable forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Similar to the context of Isaiah 13 there. And again, the word for ostriches is actually bat yana, which the Septuagint translates as sirens. Micah chapter 1, verse 8, For this will I wail and howl. I will go stripped naked. I will make a wailing like the jackals and mourning like the ostriches. And the word for ostrich there is batyana, which the Septuagint translates as sirens. So what I'm saying is that these three passages in the Tanakh, Isaiah 13, 21 through 22, Jeremiah 50, verse 39, and Micah 1, 8, may well be referring to sirens. The batyana may well be sirens. Let us explore the topic further. Two of these examples from the Septuagint, the Hebrew phrase batyana is translated Banat Nama in the Aramaic Peshitta text. The Targum Jonathan for Isaiah 13:21 has Banat Namin, which is in Aramaic, which is simply a plural form of the same. George Lamza, in his translation of the Peshitta, the phrase translates the phrase as ostriches. However, it's literally daughters of Nama. The Aramaic of the Targum could mean daughters of loveliness, but could also mean a plural form derived from Nama. Nama was the sister, this is important, Nama was the sister of Tubal-Cain, as we read in the Torah in Genesis 4:22. And Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer of brass and iron. The sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. So let's see what the Zohar has to say about Naamah, and I think we'll find it very instructive in understanding, once again, in understanding the book of Enoch and in understanding the Zohar. You'll see as we continue these studies over and over and over that the Zohar gives us keys to understanding the book of Enoch, and the book of Enoch gives us keys to understanding the Zohar, and the two go hand in hand. As I mentioned in the last study, I was once a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago more than likely, banned from a large Book of Enoch discussion group because I was regularly referencing the Zohar. And as you continue these studies, you'll see how silly it is to tell somebody you want to discuss the Book of Enoch but prohibit them from referencing the Zohar. and also that the fact that the authors of the Zohar were clearly quite familiar with the Book of Enoch and its material makes it clear that they were not, the Zohar was not a Jewish forgery created in the Middle Ages, because the Book of Enoch was not available to Europeans in the Middle Ages. Okay, so let's look at the first passage we want to look at here is in the Zohar, is from Volume 1, page 9b. The Zohar is 3 volumes in the original Aramaic, and there's so much material that modern editions of the Zohar in English are usually encyclopedic in size, or at least multiple volumes. The Sonsino version is 5 volumes, and some editions are 11, 12 volumes in length in English. But anyway, Volume 1, page 9b says these 2 chieftains were named Aphrira and Kestimon. They, however, bear the likeness of holy angels having 6 wings. One of them had the face of an ox, the other that of an eagle. But when they became united, they assumed the image of a man. In time of darkness, they change into the form of a 2-headed serpent, and crawl like a serpent, and swoop into the abyss, and bathe in the great sea. When they reach the abode of Uzzah and Azael, they stir them up. Now, Uzzah and Azael, you may remember from our earlier studies, are the Zoharic names, the names used in rabbinic literature for Shemi-Chazah and Azazel. Uzzah and Azazel, they stir them up and rouse them. These then leap into the dark mountains. That's in the Zohar, as you recall earlier, where they are bound by chains for the day of judgment. Thinking their day of judgment has come before the Holy One, blessed be his name, the 2 chiefs then swim about the great sea, and when night comes, they fly off to Naamah, the mother of the demons, or the Sheddim, the mother of the demons, Naamah, by whom the first saints were seduced. But when they think to approach her, she leaps away 6,000 parsangs and assumes all shapes and forms in the midst of the sons of men, so that the sons of men may be led astray after her. So here we have reference to Naamah, the mother of demons, and this is completely consistent with the idea that the Bat Naamah are the sirens spoken of. Exactly one of the Septuagint translators translated sirens because they knew that Bat Yana in Hebrew was a siren, and Bat Naamah in Aramaic and in the Targum because they were the daughters of Naamah. Okay, they were actually, the use of Bat here, members of Naamah. They were like Naamah. Okay, Zohar, Volume 1, page 19b. She, speaking of Naamah again, by her beauty led astray the sons of God, Uzzah and Azael, and she bore them children, and so from her went forth evil spirits and demons into the world. She wanders about at night time, vexing the sons of men and causing them to defile themselves. Wherever these spirits find people sleeping alone in a house, they hover over them, lay hold of them, and cleave to them, inspire desire in them, and beget from them. Our next reference in the Zohar is Volume 1, page 55a. It says that it's commenting on the phrase in the book of Genesis, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. It says, Rabbi Haya said, why does the scripture particularly mention Naamah? The reason is that she was the great seducer not only of men, but also of spirits and demons. Rabbi Isaac said, the sons of God mentioned in the scripture, Genesis 6:4, who were Uzzah and Azael, were seduced by her. Again, this is exactly, these guys knew the book of Enoch. The author of the Zohar knew the book of Enoch well. Rabbi Simeon said, she was the mother of the demons, being of the side of Cain. And it is she who, in company with Lilith, brings epilepsy on children. Lilith is a demon of the night, a demoness of the night, female, and also known for causing miscarriages. Said Rabbi Abba to them, did you not say before that her function is to seduce men? He replied, that is so. She disports herself with men and sometimes bears spirits from them. And she still exists to seduce men. Rabbi Abba said to him, but do these demons not die like human beings? How then comes she to exist to the present day? He replied, it is so. Lilith and Naamah and Egeret, the daughter of Mahalat, who originated from their side, will all continue to exist until the Holy One, blessed be He, sweeps away the unclean spirit. As it is written, I will cause the unclean spirit to pass out of the land. Zechariah 13:2. Said Rabbi Simeon, alas for the blindness of the sons of men, all unaware as they are, how full the earth is of strange and invisible beings and hidden dangers, which could they but see, they would marvel how they themselves can exist on the earth. This Naamah was the mother of the demons, and from her originate all the evil spirits which mix with men and arouse in them concupiscence, which leads them to defilement. It is because such a hap comes from the side of the unclean spirit that it entails the need for purification by ablution, as our colleagues have explained, by water immersion, in other words, tevila. Okay, and the final reference, wet my whistle here before I go on to the last one, is again Zohar, Volume 3, page 76b through 77a. So the last part of page 76 and the first part of 77. When it says these Zohar references, it's a volume number, one of three volumes, 1, 2, or 3, and then it's a page number and then column A or B. So that's the referencing system. Now, though that's the standard system used for referencing the Zohar, which is based on a very old printing of the Zohar, and in Aramaic, printings of the Zohar, like the Talmud, then maintain the same page numbers and columns, similar to the way we referenced the Talmud. Okay, so Zohar, Volume 3, page 76b through page 77, column A. One male came into the world from the side of the spirit of Cain, the spirit of the side of Cain, and they called him Tubal-Cain. A female came from him who is called Naamah, from whom issued other spirits and demons. These hover in the air and tell things to those others below. This Tubal-Cain produced weapons of war, and this Naamah clung to her own side, and she still exists, having her abode among the waves of the great sea. She goes forth and makes sport with men, and conceives from them through her lustful dreams, from their lustful dreams. From that lust she becomes pregnant, and she brings forth further species in the world. The sons the sons whom she bears from human beings, um, show themselves to the females of mankind, who become pregnant from them and bring forth spirits. And they all go to the ancient uh, uh, Lilith, who brings them up. She goes out into the world and seeks this way. She goes. She she goes out into the world and seeks her little ones. And when she sees little children, she cleaves to them in order to kill them and to insinuate herself into their spirits. There are, however, three Holy Spirits which fly in front of her and take that spirit from her that is set before the Holy One, blessed be He. And there are, uh, and they are taught before Him. Thus they guard that child, and she cannot hurt them. But if a man is not holy and draws upon himself a spirit from the unclean side, she comes and makes sport with that child, and if she kills him, she enters into his spirit and never leaves it. You may say, what about those others whom she has killed, although the three angels confronted her and took from her their spirits? Since they were not on the side of uncleanness, why has she power to kill them? This happens when a man does not sanctify himself, but yet does not purposely try to defile himself, nor accordingly do so. In such cases, she has power over the body, but not the spirit. Sometimes it happens that Naamah goes forth to have intercourse with men, and a man is linked with her in lust, and then suddenly wakes and clasps his wife, though his mind is still full of the lust of his dream. In that case, the son so born is of the side of Naamah, and when Lilith goes forth, she sees him and knows what has happened, and brings him up like the other children of Naamah, and is often with her, and she does not kill him. This is the man who receives a blemish on every new moon. Okay. So those are the traditions surrounding Naamah, and it's very clear from the descriptions there that it's describing um, sirens. In fact, having her abode among the waves of the sea, making sport with men, seducing them, um, this is all very similar to um, the idea of a siren. By the way, uh, sirens are also mentioned, as pointed out in our handout, later in chapter 96, verse 2. And in the day of the tribulation of the sinners, this is 1 Enoch 96:2. And in the day of the tribulation of sinners, your children shall mount and rise as eagles, and higher than the vultures with your nest. And you shall ascend and enter into the crevices of the earth and the clefts of the rock, forever as the convoys, as canes before the unrighteous, and the sirens shall sigh before you and weep. In other words, judgment of the sirens. Okay, so the sirens being mentioned in the book of Enoch is, first of all, not wildly out of place Greek mythology, but reference to what the Hebrew Tanakh calls Bat Yanah. In fact, the original Hebrew of the book of Enoch would have had Bat Yanah here, and the Aramaic would have had almost certainly Bat Nama. At any rate, we definitely have a tradition that fits exactly with this in the historic Jewish literature, and especially fleshed out well in the Zohar. So the Zohar gives us a key to understanding this, as does the Targum and the Aramaic Peshitta, which both in the Aramaic translate Bat Yanah as some form of Nama or Bat Nama, which fits exactly with the concept of Nama as a siren in the Zohar. The word siren isn't used in the Zohar, but it isn't needed to be used because the word Nama is basically a siren. Okay. All right, so now we have an understanding of this reference to sirens in the book of Enoch, chapter 19. So I'll reread chapter 19 again because it's only 3 verses, and then we'll move into chapter 20. So, and Uriel said to me, "Here stand the angels who have connected themselves with women, and their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind, and shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as gods." So here we have, by the way, right here in the book of Enoch, this idea that these Nephilim and the evil spirits that came from them are equivalent to false gods and worshipped as false gods. And by the way, this fits very well because in Greek mythology you have the Titans who then gave forth birth to the Greek gods, and the Greek gods, the Titans were then judged and put in the underworld in Tartarus, and that'll become important later in our study as we continue here, a place called in the Greek called Tartarus. And that, in fact, we're just about to hit on that, so let me move on. And shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as gods. Here shall they stand till the day of the great judgment, in which shall be judged till they are made an end of. And then verse 2, and the women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens. So their punishment was to become sirens, and now we know what sirens are in the Tanakh and in the Zohar. And I, Enoch, alone saw the vision, the ends of all things, and no man shall see as I have seen. Now, you remember that at the beginning of this chapter 19, suddenly had referenced Uriel. And in chapter 17, throughout the chapter, there's constant reference, there's constant reference to they took me here, they took me there. So it has a group of tour guides that have not been revealed to us. In chapter 20, they are finally revealed to us. Enoch realizes that he's been referencing they, that he's referenced one of they by name, Uriel. So he realizes I should probably create a open parenthesis here and tell you who they are. Uriel's one of them, but who they are, because he realizes that he's going to be referencing some of them by name as the story moves forward, or as his revelation moves forward, as apocalypse moves forward. So chapter 20, verse 1, and these are the names of the set apart angels who watch. Watch, they're not the watchers in the negative sense, but they watch, they guard, if you will. And they're also his tour guides. Uriel, one of the set apart angels who is over the world and over Tachti. Now we have a handout for this, 7 angels who watch, 1 Enoch 20. Let me go over each of their names real quickly here. I don't have this in the handout, but you may want to write it down off to the side or something. Uriel means my light is El. Raphael means El is healer. Rauel means friend of El. Machael means who is like El. Sariel means El is my prince. Gavriel means strength or severity of El. and Rumiel means El rises me up or raises me up. Okay, so that's the names of the meanings of the names of each of these seven that are mentioned in this chapter. And so then we're told in verse 2, Uriel is one of the set apart angels who is over the world and over Takhti. Takhti is the word that the Hebrew uses, and where the Masoretic text uses, wherever the Septuagint uses the word Tartarus. So Tartarus is used in 2 Peter 2:4, where the KJV translates hell. It's one of three words that gets translated hell in English in the KJV. We think of hell as just one thing, but in the original languages, there are three hells, three different words that are translated hell. And Takhti is one of them in 2 Peter 2:4. Well, it's not Takhti. Well, in the original Hebrew of 2 Peter 2:4, it would have been Takhti. Takhti means the lowest place, the lower places. The Greek word is Tartarus in 2 Peter 2:4. Now, in Greek mythology, Tartarus was the place of punishment for the Titans, who were the fathers of the gods, the Greek gods. So that gives you an idea of what Takhti is. Takhti, and we'll see more information about it in the book of Enoch, is the place of punishment of the Nephilim, and the place where they're held in chains until the last day, until the judgment, at least. Okay. Verse 3. Oh, yeah, verse 3. Raphael, one of the set apart angels who is over the spirits of men. Now that doesn't really mean a whole lot at first, but we get some context later, and we'll look at that in a minute here in the book of Enoch that kind of tells us what that means. Then there's Ra'uel, one of the set-apart angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Then there's Michael, one of the set-apart angels, to wit, who is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. And we'll see as the book of Enoch continues that when it says the best part of mankind, it's talking about Israel. Verse 6, Sariel, one of the set-apart angels who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. And then Gavriel, one of the set-apart angels who is over Paradis or paradise, and the seraphim and the cherubim or the cherubim. And then Rumiel is number 8. This is actually missing from the Ethiopic text, but it's in the Greek text, and there are supposed to be 7. Rumiel, one of the set-apart angels whom Elohim set over those who rise. All right. So looking back at our chart in our handout, we'll see that that Uriel is there. I have dialogue with Enoch. So as his tour guides, Enoch dialogues with these guys, and when and where he dialogues with them seems to imply and tie somewhat with their functions. By the way, Uriel later will be, in the book of Enoch later at least, will be Enoch's tire guide, his tour guide in the astronomical section of the book, the calendar astronomical section. And Uriel, of course, had already been mentioned at the beginning of chapter 19. So Uriel is referenced not only in chapter 19, but in chapter 21, which deals with the prisons of the fallen angels, which is Tahti, which makes sense because he's over the world and over Tahti. He's also referenced in chapter 27 in Gehinnom. He's also Enoch inquires or questions him in chapter 27, which deals with Gehinnom, the literal the valley of Gehinnom in his vision, which therefore ties it to the symbolic Gehinnom. We're going to cover these more when we get to these actual chapters. Then in chapter 33, at the very ends of the east, again, he inquires of Uriel. In chapter 22, which deals with Sheol, and we'll be getting to that here in a few minutes here. We have time. I don't know. We may not have time. Going into these things so deep, I don't know we'll have time today. So in chapter 22, we deal with Sheol, and in chapter 32, which deals with Paradis or paradise. In both of those two chapters, Enoch asks Raphael questions and he answers them, which helps us understand what it means by Raphael is over the spirits of men. Over the spirits of men, perhaps where they go in the pre-resurrection afterlife. Ra'ul is mentioned in chapter 23, or referenced in chapter 23. Enoch dialogues with him in chapter 23, which deals with the fire west of the ends of the earth. And then Michael, who is over the best part of mankind, is inquired, dialogued with in chapters 24 through 26, which deal with 7 mountains and the environs around the area of Jerusalem, or perhaps since this is a vision in reference to how this is happening, Jerusalem above, which served as a pattern for Jerusalem below. Because we have to remember that all these things are happening in a vision. So anyone who tries to construct a flat earth model from Enoch's tour in the book of Enoch is missing the clear point, as I pointed out at the beginning of the last study, that we're told multiple times, that this is a vision. Okay. Let's go on now to chapter 21. And I proceeded to where things were chaotic, and I saw there something horrible. I saw neither a heaven above, nor a firmly founded earth, but a place chaotic and horrible. And so he sees nothing. There's just no, it's like he's in outer space even, maybe. I don't know. He's in a place where he really can't see. It's strange to him. He doesn't see earth below or heaven above. And there I saw 7 stars of the heaven bound together in it, like great mountains, and burning with fire. Now, we talked about the 7 stars last week. 7 stars, when you see that in ancient Jewish literature, it refers to the sun, moon, and 5 visible planets when you talk about 7 stars. And those 7 stars, the sun, moon, and 5 visible planets, are wandering stars. They're, if you will, disobedient. They don't follow the rules that all the other stars follow. Okay. Verse 4. Then I said, for what sin are they bound, and what account have they been cast in here? Verse 5. Then said Uriel, one of the set apart angels who was with me, and was chief over them. Oh, there's a clue. Uriel set over Tahti. Then said Uriel, one of the set apart angels who was with me, and was chief over them, and said, Enoch, why do you ask, and why are you eager for the truth? These are the number of the stars of heaven, which have transgressed the commandments of Yahweh, and are bound here till 10,000 years, and the time entailed by their sins are consummated. Now, 10,000 years, 10,000 in Hebrew can mean 10,000, or it can be an idiomatic expression in Hebrew meaning, a whole lot, like we might say a zillion or something. And their time entailed by their sins are consummated. So this is a temporary, he's at this point seeing a temporary prison for the fallen angels. Verse 7, and from thence I went to another place, so a different place, which was still more horrible than the former, and I saw a horrible thing, a great fire there which burnt and blazed, and the place was cleft as far as the abyss, being full of great descending columns of fire. Neither its extent or magnitude could I see, nor could I conjecture. Then I said, how fearful is the place, and how terrible to look upon. Then Uriel answered me, one of the set apart angels who was with me, and said unto me, Enoch, why have you such fear and affright? And I answered, because of this fearful place, and because of the spectacle of the pain. And he said to me, this place is the prison of the angels, and here they will be imprisoned forever. So we have a second location here that's a permanent prison for the fallen angels. This is so we have two destinations: a temporary destination until the time of judgment, and then a permanent destination for the fallen angels. And again, he's inquiring with Uriel because Uriel is over Tahti or Tartarus, and I believe that the temporary location is Tartarus, and that the permanent location is Gehenna. And I think that will fit as we continue to read. So I think we'll go ahead and stop here because the next chapter, chapter 22, introduces a protracted subject, that is that of the pre-resurrection afterlife. We're going to destroy some religious paradigms that some people have in our next study. But rather than tip my hand today, we'll cover that chapter when we get to it. So this study may be a little bit shorter than some of the others, but it would be way too long if I start trying to get into the next chapter. So we're going to go ahead and stop here, and I hope you benefited from today's study and learned things maybe you didn't know before. Certainly about sirens. Many of you probably didn't know about what the bat yana, or ostriches mentioned in the KJV, really were. And maybe you have a better idea that there's at least a good deal of evidence to support that bat yana is not an ostrich, but a siren. That you've learned something about classes of demonic entities, that there's not just the Nephilim. We have the Nephilim, who were the initial fallen angels, but there's only 200 of them. Then we have the evil spirits in the earth, who were the children of the fallen angels, who became demons. And we have a class of demons known as sirens, who were the spirits of the women who copulated with the fallen angels. And because of that joining and oneness with the fallen angels, um, became evil spirits in the earth and who draw men astray. Um, I think this very well may tie in, by the way, with the Jezebel and the some of the things we read about in Revelation. And I've seen leaders, I've seen men destroyed, men in leadership in in uh, in Messianic Nazarene Judaism and so forth, destroyed by sirens. Yeah, and I'll say no more there. Okay, so next week we're going to pick up with the pre-resurrection afterlife of man, and the continue on Enoch's tour of the pattern. He's really taking a tour of the upper worlds and of the pattern, the spiritual world. He's having a tour of the spirit world, and the which was the pattern for this temporal world. So let's go ahead and wrap it up here, and I'll see you next week in, or for those of you who are binge watching these studies, whenever you choose. I'll see you in our next study in the book, through the book of Enoch, lesson 6. Shalom, everybody.